right, everybody. Welcome to episode 39 of Practical Chrome. This is, of course, Practical Chrome, the show, not the episode, the show dedicated to everything Chrome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Lenovo 11E Yoga model, which is the full flip model that allows you to turn it into a tablet. So that's pretty cool. It's also a ThinkPad, like literally like ThinkPad. They had another model out there back in the day that was also a ThinkPad and also a Chromebook, but this one is special because it does do the whole convertible thing. It has the Bay Trail chip in it, all that good stuff. We also have some news to go over. Normally we are sponsored, and I would like to thank our sponsor, which is www.effective-group.com, based out of the UK. They've been a sponsor of us for like 4 months. 5 months, maybe even 5 months, and they were great. I mean, like super great. People over there are wonderful. They've always been able to, they've reached out to us and tried to assist us. I just wanted to give a shout out. They haven't sponsored the episode, but I just want to thank them for all the sponsorship that they've done. And because of the fact that we've had this hiatus, I just wanted to take a moment to give them a thank you, but not necessarily have them sponsor the show. But anyway, gentlemen, 2 weeks hiatus. This country was almost independent in the time that we were gone. Seriously. Scotland was almost independent in the time that we were gone. What? You guys went to Chicago in the time out that we were gone. What else happened? Any other? There's probably other world news I'm forgetting. But amazing stuff. Amazing stuff.
Nothing more important than me going to Chicago, John.
It is true. That is true. And James... Listen, Craig, I got to get on you for this. I've manipulated my environment, so I have a large, beautiful map of Scotland and all the clan, right, crests, right? I've got Superman over there, which is like, that's the whole deal. James has at least used 32 cans of spray paint to create this most beautiful backdrop I've ever seen. It's awesome, it's enormous, and I love it. And yet, what is going on behind you, sir?
Well, this is actually an art project. I call it boring. So, it's kind of one of those ones that you have to interpret it your way. So, to me, I look at it, I see the essence of Chrome. It's simple, it's effective, it's there, and you're not supposed to see it or interact with it. It's supposed to melt away and put the web first.
You know what? As usual, your comeback is excellent. I would even say you might even have a little bit of material design in that thing there, because it's so flat, but you've got a little bit of 3D edge to it. If
I play with the blinds, I can get it to animate too.
Oh, you could do that awesome CSS GIF that I love every day, which is from Family Guy, where he's messing with it over and over and over again, and it just keeps on making the blinds all jacked up. That's good stuff. All right.
I'm right there with you, John. I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
I enjoy that GIF.
It's about CSS, working with CSS.
I have to say it's pronounced GIF, but...
Listen, don't get into me about GIF. GIF is a peanut butter, James, and also the best peanut butter. Peter Pan is too sugary, and Jif even makes a natural, which is awesome. Let's not go into that right now, because it's definitely a GIF if it's spelled with a G. All right. So listen, guys. In the news, I do want to make this kind of a short episode, just because of the fact that we're starting a little bit late. Part of that's my fault. We do have the 11E to look at, and we've also got some news that's happened over the past 2 weeks that we've been gone. Because of the busyness that's been going on. You guys in Chicago, Scotland, and other things that have been going on in the past, but we couldn't be here. And I want to go over the news. I think, Craig, you had a quick list, and I think it matched pretty much to mine. What I did was I checked my RSS feeds, and I scanned them really quickly because it's literally all the time that I've had. I did scan them really quickly, and I think I had the same stuff that you did, so I kind of want to, if you want to just pop up with your first news story, we'll just give it a shout and see if we want to talk about it. But what was the first one on your list, Craig?
Well, probably the most relevant one today actually happened today. Chrome OS received a stable channel update to all Chromebook devices, not Chromebox devices. They'll get it shortly. And this update actually includes support for MTP file transfers, which means, in English, you can now connect your Android cell phone to your Chromebook and read and access files from it. However, as James will quickly point out, write support is not yet included, so you cannot transfer files to your phone. That's coming, but it's not there yet. So this is big news for a lot of people, but it's not perfect news. It's one of those brief moments of bliss before you realize that everything's terrible. But we have plenty of suggestions for people that want to get around that read-write limitation. The biggest is just using AirDroid, which does wireless transfers over your local network. It can also go across the internet, but as long as you're keeping it local, it's free to use. And it's what I use to transfer music and movies from my Chromebooks to my Android devices. And that'll be in the show notes, too.
I love AirDroid.
Also, shout out for PushBullet.
And PushBullet. Both of them are excellent.
Pretty much the same-ish.
Ish.
Kind of. I don't know. I'm assuming AirDroid probably doesn't work on iPhones. If you're out there and you're using an iPhone for some reason, PushBullet does work on the iPhone.
Okay, all right. I love the AirDroid though. AirDroid, it's almost like it's one of those things where you were like, wow, why didn't I think of that? Because it's so straightforward and simple to create the way that they have the interaction between the Chromebook and the Android, or any device that uses Chrome and the Android. It's amazing. So, all right, cool. I have yet to hook up my Android device to my Chromebook. I don't know why. I don't do much transferring. I'm not like that. Awesome. I like that. Craig, what else did you have in there?
Photoshop streaming.
Ah, yes. Craig and his Photoshop.
Yes. We actually had a commenter on one of the last episodes, or one of the last couple episodes, point out that this actually happened while we were in our hiatus stage, and they said, "Hey, I know Craig uses Photoshop. Does he know about this?" Yes. Thank you. Yes, I jumped on it day one. It is still in the limited beta, and they're currently trying to recruit educational customers for it.
It's beta, Craig.
It's not an open beta, and it's pronounced beta. This is not an English course, John. Go to a help out for that. Go to a help out for that type of service. This is a Chrome podcast, unless it's.
Look, you corrected me on GIF. I'm going to correct you on beta.
All right. Is data singular or plural?
It's data, first of all, and data can be singular or plural. Sorry,
we'll come back to this.
Please proceed.
We're going to have a long discussion after the show. So anyway, Photoshop streaming is interesting because it's a partnership between Adobe and Google, and basically they sat down and came to an agreement. Adobe wasn't willing to build a true native app for Chrome OS, but they didn't want to miss out on the consumer base that's there using Chrome OS that wants access to Photoshop. So the solution is actually to stream Photoshop directly from Adobe servers. It should, in theory, work pretty much the same as just visiting a website. You navigate to an address bar, it pops up on your screen, and you have access to Photoshop. It also has integrated Google Drive, which means that if you're currently using Photoshop on a Windows PC and you want to migrate to the system, in order to move your source files, all you have to do is install the Google Drive client or upload them directly through the web interface. So it should be a pretty painless transfer. I'm not clear on whether all of your settings and plugins will sync as well. I have a feeling that as long as you're using their Creative Cloud program, those probably will. But the bottom line is this is a major milestone for Chrome OS. Not only is it an indication that the platform is growing in popularity, but it's also just a relief of a pain point for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that want to use Chrome OS as a lightweight machine, and the ability to stream Photoshop remotely aligns with the lightweight machine ideology without making the sacrifice of having access to a powerful application. So, like I said earlier, it is in a limited rollout for educational customers only. but hopefully they'll expand that to an open program soon, and as soon as it's available for me to try, I will be trying it.
I like it. Now listen, this actually does do us the justice of being able to say, yes, it runs Photoshop, right? That was the big caveats. Well, does it do Excel? Does it do Photoshop? I used to love that advertisement because I was just like, except for people that were in a college course that even either users of Photoshop who paid for it and knew how to use it really well, or students that needed it for one college course knew about Photoshop, and then they used it specifically in the advertisement when Microsoft was like, it doesn't run Photoshop, which is kind of an interesting. I always found that because I don't know. That was the interesting thing to me about the fact that they kept on bringing up Photoshop, and I'm like, how many people really? I mean, I know a lot of people do, but I'm just saying, I don't know. Craig, what do you think about that? I mean, how many people? And James too. What do you like? Photoshop. It's a very important application because it is incredibly powerful. I know this, and running on a native, OS like Windows or something like that. People say that that's where it needs to run. Now it's coming to Chrome OS, but how many people out there were saying to themselves, I can't run Photoshop, right? Like, especially in the general public.
I don't think it was an issue of how many people actually had access to it. I think it was leveraging a popular household name for a product. Most people know that Photoshop exists, especially if they've been on the internet. So they're familiar that Photoshop exists. They're familiar with it as a powerful application. And for a lot of consumers, they don't want to buy a product that is inherently limited. And I think that's the point that Microsoft was trying to drive home. Now, I've actually discussed this with someone else, and we've come to the conclusion that the next application Microsoft will be clamoring for is iTunes. And that's going to be interesting because Apple owns iTunes, and we're not sure if they really want to promote a competitor's product. So they're going to be at a crossroads.
Well, wait a minute. Do you know what? There's the one other app that we do talk about a great deal, simply because it's used by millions, and they did just buy that company, and that's Minecraft.
Minecraft is interesting. I would say Skype has more brand power, but we're going to talk about Skype here in just a couple minutes too. Minecraft is interesting. You're right, but I'm not sure that Minecraft has the same influence with the older demographics as the way Photoshop might. You don't have a lot of professionals in. Now I have to be careful how I phrase this because I don't want to make people angry. Because Minecraft is not just a niche game anymore.
No.
It is an incredibly popular platform, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff with it. So I don't want to stereotype the average Minecraft player, but I think that there would be a limited overlap between people that use Photoshop and people that use Minecraft. Whereas I think iTunes is a much more approachable platform. You don't have to be a gamer. You don't have to be a professional photo editor. You can be an average person that owns an iPod.
If you're the average person, don't you hate iTunes, though?
Oh, yeah, you absolutely hate it, but it's also the best way to manage your iPod, unfortunately.
Sorry. Easy dig at an application that's used by millions. Go ahead.
Now, I did hear that one of the recent iPhone updates now lets you update without needing to connect to iTunes. So you can do it straight from Apple, which is, in my opinion, just phenomenal.
Right.
It takes like 6 hours from what I hear, but it's pretty cool.
There you go. Well, so my point about the Minecraft, though, is that the Microsoft now owns it. Honestly, like if you told me as a parent, my kid really wants to use Minecraft, it works okay on Xbox, but if you had a keyboard and mouse, it might work a little bit better for you. But yet I don't want them using my $600 Windows machine that I might use for work, or I need to have available in case something breaks or whatever and I need some application on it. If you told me that I could buy a $200 Chromebook and then easily get my kid on Minecraft, I'd be super psyched. The fact that it doesn't run it is kind of a ding.
But that's kind of we're kind of used to that. I mean, the Chromebook has always been not the gaming console. So, I mean, Minecraft is the thing with Minecraft. People think it's really simple because it's like cheesy little 8-bit graphics or whatever, but the back end of that game is huge. I mean, the game itself, the world that you play in is monstrous. And from what I understand, that's part of the reason why it's not easy to just make Minecraft work on a Chromebook well. It's probably why it doesn't work super well on Xbox. I don't know. But that game is bigger and more complex than people think, just based on the way they look at the cheesy graphics. But that's just the nature of the Chromebook. You're not playing Diablo 3 on it either. You're not playing Halo 4 on it. It's a $200 machine. You probably aren't going to play Halo 4 on a $200 Windows machine either. So I mean, it would be nice to put Minecraft on there, but hell, it'd be nice to put iTunes and Skype and Office on it too. But we got to draw the line to keep the benefits of the Chromebook light and secure and fast. We're not going to be able to do some things like play Minecraft or Diablo or iTunes. So I don't know. Photoshop is like the Windows. Photoshop is like Windows. If you were to compare Chromebooks are lightweight. They do most of what most people need to do, and a few people have to have Windows. There are alternatives to Photoshop that does most of what most people need to do, and there are some people who unfortunately have to have Photoshop. So I guess I'm excited to see Photoshop on the Chromebook. I hope it's as powerful as a normal one. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off, streaming from my computer to their servers and run full-blown Photoshop. I don't know what the limitations will be. Probably just mostly my internet connection. I don't know. But I'm really excited to see it. It's a little disappointing that it won't be a packaged app. We will need internet, but you know what? My favorite app that I always talk about, Pixlr, that requires internet too. That's not a packaged app either. So I'm pretty excited to see Photoshop. It's kind of one of those things that we didn't think we'd ever see on a Chromebook, probably, just because how massive it is. And so we're going to see it. Some people are already seeing it. Some lucky student beta testers somewhere.
I'm with you. My concern is just that when we talked about Microsoft, they talked about the fact that it wouldn't run Photoshop. Then they bought one of the most popular games that won't run on either. But it is a small little niche thing.
I don't care if it doesn't run on a Chromebook. They probably don't want Minecraft to run on a Chromebook.
I don't know. We'll see. They're probably not going to use it. But anyway, okay, so let's keep going. So, Craig, what was next on your list?
Let me check. Oh, I don't actually need to check because it's obvious. It's Android apps, John. We disappear for 2 weeks and everything breaks loose. Everything breaks loose. You've got Google that says, okay, we're going to make Android apps work in a secure way. That was Google's kind of press release. That was their MO. We're going to, but it's going to be slow. It's going to be steady. And basically, we're going to do it right. And it took, 72 hours, maybe 48, before the open community got a hold of their method and just said, no, let's just go ahead and open the floodgates. And it was a monsoon. It really was. If you didn't follow the drama, basically it was official release from Google of 4 apps, community release of a tool that lets you run any app, a lot of broken apps, a lot of work from the open community to get them better compatibility. There was an app published to the Google Play Store at one point that allowed you to easily pull apps off of your phone. Google responded promptly by removing that from the Google Play Store. So it's now been renamed and it lives on GitHub. So the gist, John, is that the average person with a little tech savvy can get any Android app they want, within reason, running on a Chromebook, including some popular ones like Skype. Now, the apps don't always run perfect. There are still some compatibility issues. And it's not 100% above board. A lot of the app developers have not given their blessing for this type of distribution of their apps. So it's not... I don't know that the average person should jump in head first. I'm personally keeping an eye on it. I'm mildly curious, but I'm not jumping in. But it's interesting. From a technical perspective, it's awesome. It's awesome that the community was able to take what Google was doing and exploit it so quickly and on such a large scale. I mean, to me, that's the most impressive part of it. I have an enormous amount of respect for the developers that were able to figure out how this works behind the scenes and just unleash the potential. But the reasonable person in me says, well, Google had good intentions. I'm sure they did. And it's not all above board, so don't get too excited. But it's definitely a major step. Forward or backwards is up for debate, but it's a major step. Something happened.
I'm giving a thumbs down to the whole Android apps on Chrome. James, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, we talked about it briefly when we saw the I/O. When we saw the I/O conference and we saw them talk about this, and we saw like the Vine app, and we saw the Evernote app, and we were all kind of like, "Ooh, that's interesting." There was all the debate on how it was working, whether it was like a screen share with your phone, or whether it was possibly a Java library loaded on the Chromebook. I don't know the inner workings of this, so it's something I'd really like to know about because I want to know. I want to know where Google might have decided to step away from lean and mean and, coding directly for the web to, we've got all these Android apps, let's go ahead and bring them over to any Chrome device. James, what are your thoughts on the Chrome apps on Chromebooks?
Well, it sounds exciting at first, just because you think right away that's opening up all these possibilities. And I guess it opens up a couple possibilities. Like Craig mentioned Skype. I haven't tried any of these apps, but apparently you can have Skype on a Chromebook now. So it's not to the point where a Best Buy employee is going to tell customers that. I mean, they probably will because they're Best Buy employees, but they shouldn't be telling people that because it's not official. But it's happening. It is possible to have Skype on a Chromebook. So that's kind of cool, but I can't think of one other instance where I would care. Like there's a form out there floating around the interwebs from Google asking us to tell them what Android apps we want on a Chromebook. And I thought, oh yes, I'm going to fill that out. And I opened up the form and I turned my phone on and I started scrolling through apps to find the ones that I wanted. And I couldn't find a single app on my phone that I thought, I wish this worked on a Chromebook. Because either A, there's no reason to have them work on a Chromebook, like games. I don't need to play my Android games on my Chromebook, or there's already an app, available for. It's not the same exact app. It's just two different apps that sync together, like Gmail. I'm not running the Android version of Gmail on my Chromebook. I'm running the Chrome version of Gmail on my Chromebook and the Android version of Gmail on my phone, and they sync together perfectly. So there's a lot of other apps that do the same thing. Pushbullet, like I mentioned earlier, Chrome itself, Google Play Music, Google Drive, all these apps sync with each other already, and I couldn't find a single app that I thought, boy, I wish I could have this app running on my Chromebook right now. So I'm not really that excited about it. And the one app where it actually kind of makes sense, Skype, I'm certainly not excited about it because I don't use Skype. I use Hangouts, obviously. So I don't know. It's all just kind of meh for me. But and I'm also trying to see the long-term benefit. How is this going to help me as an Android Chromebook user? Is this going to benefit me later, even though it's not benefiting me now? I can't see how it's going to benefit me later.
That's actually a really good question. Craig, where's the benefit?
I think the primary benefit is for people that need Skype or need access to Android apps that are not currently available through official channels. There's definitely an interest in the community just from people that are interested in the general idea of running Android apps, more for like a hobby, technical, let's see what we can get into kind of perspective, But for the main average person, I do think it boils down to a few core apps. Skype's one of them for sure.
I totally agree. I think we've hit the nail on the head there with that. What app do you absolutely need to have on your computer? Whether that be on a Chromebook or on a Windows machine. I mean, they're talking about, Craig, you brought up the running it on your Chrome OS, Chromebook, Chromebox. They're getting to work on any machine running Chrome, from what I understand, using this trick, this tool that's been created by the open source community, which, like Craig said, is awesome and amazing that someone, there's some really cool people out there that take the time to put this stuff together, and then constantly work at it and make it even better for nothing. Just being able to say that they did it and have fun with it. But what app do I really, what was funny is that when the Android SDK came out long time ago, and you could build apps, and you'd build it on the Windows machine or whatever. There was one that you could really do almost like you could build it, load the apps, and then you could kind of manipulate the apps on your screen. And I had that a couple of days where I'd have this little Android device on my screen. And it was kind of fun to be able to see the app running there, but it was a novelty. So to be able to see your Chrome device or see a Chrome app, to see your Android or Android app on the screen in small size or even in landscape, even in this really big manner, just seems kind of, I don't know. Maybe we're not into the touch. Maybe that's what's missing. But both of you have a touch device, so I would think that you too would be like, oh yeah, I want, like James, you said about the Gmail. If you're the Gmail app, it would be more touch friendly because that's what it's built for. It's built for a touch device. I don't know.
I like clicking on things. I enjoy the touchpad, and now that I have a Chromebox, I find myself using a mouse most of the time. So not super excited about being able to touch my screen. The only reason I bought the touchscreen is because it's the only one that came in white. And once I figure out how to disable the touchscreen, I will, because I keep cleaning hairs off the screen and accidentally touching things. But I feel like I had a point. Oh, yeah. I just think that there's better things Google could be working on right now, rather than trying to get Android apps to work on a Chromebook, like Chrome web apps working on Android. I think that would benefit me more, because then I wouldn't have, it would just make everything even closer to being same environment, different screen. If Chrome on my phone worked just like it did on my computer, and I could have extensions work or things like that, I think that might be a little bit better, because then you would just have one app. You'd write Google Keep, for instance, and it'd just be one app on your computer, on your tablet, on your phone. It's not two different apps that sync together. It's just the same exact app. So that would, and I think that the native client that's coming out, that's kind of the same concept. It's going to allow people to just write one app that'll work on multiple devices. But if I understand it correctly, they're still going to have to write a separate app for the Android phones and the iPhones. Maybe I'm wrong, but so I don't know. I think there's better things they could spend their time on. Some apps that could improve, rather than trying to get these apps to work on a Chromebook. I just don't see the benefit. I feel like they're probably putting a lot of time and money into this, and I'm not sure they're going to get a lot of payback from it.
That's a good point. Craig, counterpoint, sir?
Well, I can see from a marketing perspective how the development time can be justified. Because people, in general, see Chromebooks as limited devices. And it seems like bringing over Android apps has been fairly straightforward. Obviously, there was a lot of engineering and development time invested in that process. But it seems like the process itself was pretty straightforward. So if they put a year of development and engineering time into achieving this. If you look at that cost versus the ability to say, Chromebooks run Android apps, to the average customer that already has a Google Play account, that has already purchased applications from Google Play for their phone, the ability to have their Chromebook, their laptop, run those same apps is beneficial. Now, as you guys have pointed out, there may not be a lot of apps that actually get used day to day. It'll be interesting to see some metrics on that. Hey, it works. Is worth money. How much money? I don't know. I don't work for Google. But I have a feeling that this was probably a marketing / end consumer driven project rather than part of a grand design for the intent of Chrome and Android overall. And I say that because it's very reactionary. It's not something that it contradicts everything we've kind of seen. We've seen native client, we've seen web technologies being pushed at every turn, and this is kind of a step backwards for that. So to me, that screams reaction, not intensive planning. So I'm kind of neutral on the whole thing. Is it nice to be able to run some Android apps? Yeah, I'm sure it will be. But I would be more in favor of Google pushing the Android developers to develop native client apps and then backport native to run on Android, so that you're developing a single app one time in native client and having it run natively on Chrome and Android. And I'm sure that they could do some sort of conversion layer for iOS somehow.
Right.
I can't speak to details, but I'm sure that would be technically possible. So I would prefer Chrome to be the platform of choice moving forward, but as of today, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. But things could change tomorrow. The wind could blow a different direction from Silicon Valley.
It's all wind. That's all the winds of change. So that is Android apps on Chrome. That's really what that is. And it's just it's weird. It's weird. I don't know where it all lies, but that's all right. I didn't to be honest, I didn't have any other news. Craig, did you have any other news?
There was a lot of news, John, but
There was no news. Can you guys hear me okay? I know I'm fading in and out. Yeah. Derp. Okay. There was one other piece of news that I wanted to bring up as I roll into the next segment. And that is that apparently Google has stolen 50% market share of education models being sold. What? That's right. Chromebooks are filling up the school shelves, so to speak. And I wanted to take that as a segue to bring over my little friend. Would you like to say hello to my little friend? And this is the ThinkPad 11e Yoga. So, and right now I'm showing you on the screen if you're watching the video. It's got the ThinkPad logo, of course, as usual, but look at the blinking red eye. Isn't that cool? It's the little things, guys. You know I've told you that. It's the little things that make me happy, and that is one of them. Before I get started on looking at this model, what do you guys think of the fact that they had the 31, which was basically a ThinkPad that had Chrome OS on it, right? Now they've built this one unit that will actually run Windows 8 or Chrome OS. Particularly going towards the education market at first, but I think that they've actually opened the gates on that. But what are your guys' thoughts on the fact that Lenovo has decided to build a unit in a rugged ThinkPad model, and also give it the Chrome OS treatment. I mean, literally the Chrome OS treatment. It's even, although there are pictures out there of it not having it having a Windows key, and that's hilarious. But what are your thoughts on the fact that like Lenovo is still diving in and creating a very $430, but a very tough unit? I mean, this thing is like it's a little sturdy, it's a little heavy, reinforced keyboard, things like that. James, what are your thoughts? Have you ever seen the ThinkPad line where you've played with it enough where you're like, man, this thing's just like a beast? I mean, this literally is a ThinkPad that is a Chrome device.
I think it's really great to see a brand like Lenovo jumping on board. They've created like 4 Chromebooks now, and the ThinkPad, I've never owned one, but I've also never seen or heard anyone say anything bad about the ThinkPad line. They seem to, if I'm correct here, like I said, I've never owned them, but seems like the ThinkPad line of laptops has always been kind of rugged. If you want the sturdy, rugged laptop that will, survive the tests of time, you get a ThinkPad. So I think it's cool that they're keeping that. They're giving us the ThinkPad fans now can get a ThinkPad Chromebook, and I think that's really cool. It's not something I'm personally interested in. I think $400 is a little much for a Chromebook, but I know that there are people that would want that, especially if you're going to get your kid Chromebook, and maybe your kid is like me and they're not exactly careful with their belongings. You're choosing between paying $300 on a machine that's less expensive but has a higher chance of you having to possibly pay another $300 later if they break it, or springing for the $430 and knowing that that's probably not going to get broken not longer than, say, my Acer Chromebook, which seems like every review that I read or watch of the Acer C720 is always, well, I got a great deal on this, but it feels a little flimsy. It doesn't feel very sturdy. So I think there definitely is a market for a sturdy ThinkPad Chromebook.
Agreed, and I think that with this you're going to get it. Craig, what are your thoughts on ThinkPads and Chromebooks, where like ThinkPads are like literally enterprise grade devices that are carried in a bag every day, back and forth to work. That's kind of like their niche, is that they're going to give you, the experience of having a model that you can have for 2 to 3 years that'll stay sturdy, and also ThinkPad line is you're not going to have, for an enterprise, you're not going to have to replace it once every couple of years, if not 3 or 4, and still be able to maintain and it still last that entire time.
Well, it gives me hope for Motorola yet. As we know, Lenovo purchased the ThinkPad line from IBM a while back, and they've maintained the quality. There are a few, let's call them patriots, loyalists, that are a little upset at some of the design changes, but on the whole, the ThinkPad brand is still, like John said, built like a tank. They last. They are durable. They are the type of machines that you want to take to war. That's all there is to say about ThinkPads. And as we also know, Lenovo will soon be taking ownership of Motorola. And hopefully, they continue to keep the Motorola brand working well and making some excellent smartphones. I have nothing bad to say about my Moto X 2014. Nothing bad at all.
Or
Anyway,
the 13 model.
or the 360.
Or the 360.
To your point, John, I think Lenovo's done an excellent job with the ThinkPad brand. I like the idea of selling enterprise-grade, durable devices to the education market. I'm not sure how many end consumers will be purchasing them because of the price point. For some parents, a $200 Acer with a $30 insurance program that's good for 2 years is a better deal than a $400 rugged machine that's going to get 3 years. It just depends on your family and your cycle and how tech savvy you are, and whether you're willing to buy a Lenovo or buy a ThinkPad online, or if you're more comfortable walking into a Best Buy where you're going to have a 15-day return policy in a local shopping mall, something like that. But I think for education, it makes a lot of sense, especially when schools are looking at deploying for 4 years. There are a lot of high schools 4 years. The school wants a laptop that's going to last all 4 of those years. So I think that the durability factor is really kind of a winning factor for in a lot of cases. But some of the internals I've heard aren't fantastic when it comes to performance. So it may be built like a tank, but like a tank, it's slow, and, well, you got to run over every speed bump on the way. So unlike a helicopter that just shows up. There are some drawbacks there, and for a $400 machine, you would expect comparative performance. If I was making a purchasing decision for a school district, the Lenovo would definitely be a contender because of the durability, not so much so because of the specs alone. So as far as carving out their own niche goes, it's a smart move.
It is a smart move. Now, the durability, though, does come with a couple of caveats. There is the whole bay trail situation, which we'll talk about in a minute, but there's the weight. So this model, the one that was provided to me by Lenovo, which we thank them. I thank them very much for lending me this so I could take a good look at it. The weight is the one that I received is 3 pounds 10.8 ounces. The HP 14 is the only heavier model that I've ever seen to it, and that was 4 pounds and 0.6 ounces, right? So
it's 4 pounds that feels like 8 pounds, let me just tell you.
Right. Well, this is almost 4 pounds, but so it's very heavy, and it's very, if I meant to grab my copy of Superman issue #1 so I could show you the size comparison, which we've always joked about. I've been laughed at about. But I can tell you the durability piece is really good. So if you look at it, it does have a large trackpad. If you take a look here, you've got a pretty large trackpad. Again, that ThinkPad logo with the glowing eye, it's a nice touch. The red line on the trackpad. Then you have the Education Series sticker, and then the Bay Trail logo, which is a black Intel sticker with the silver top. So it's very interesting. The keyboard is definitely more rugged. I can definitely tell that they're kind of like they're synced down a little bit better. They have definitely the Lenovo feel that I'm used to on the model that I have. But the ruggedness comes with a price, and that is the weight. That's number one. Number two is the fact that if you look at the unit, the bottom half and the top half are almost the same thickness. So when you rotate it, and you rotate it all the way around, you've got it's not a tablet. It's a really thick. It almost feels like a really thick, flipped around laptop that you're holding. I don't know why it rebooted, but it did. So it's an interesting feel because, and I tried using it in a tablet mode, but I'm going to be 100% honest here. I didn't enjoy it because of the fact that I feel like I'm touching the keys and they could come off. And as a teacher, I don't know if I'd ever like that. And then as a student, I just don't know. And you can see the size of the screen in portrait mode. It's like very thin. There's a great deal of bezel going on. There's at least 2 inches of bezel here, another inch of bezel over here, inch of bezel on top and bottom. It just isn't like that great of a tablet experience when you flip it around, and plus it's heavy as all get out. I mean, maybe I'm missing an app that would pique my interest for this type of
maybe some Android apps,
maybe some Android apps. You make a good point, James. But you can see there's 2 very thick, large hinges that allow it to rotate like this. And I think that everything, the design, the build, the engineering involved in the build itself is really well done. The bottom, the top, pretty solid. The bottom is the bottom feels, and it's cool like metal, but they stayed at some type of weird plastic. I don't know what that is. It's some type of plastic metal hybrid combo deal. But because it's Bay Trail, it's fanless because it just has a lot of unique features. But I don't know if it's enough to sell me on it because of the weight and the fact that we have a Bay Trail chip in it. So let's talk about that. What are you guys hearing about the Bay Trail? Like, what are your overall impressions just of the chip itself? Let's go with Craig. Your mic is live.
Sure. Well, as far as word association goes, fanless. Their branding has obviously worked. It's fanless, and it's less powerful as a result. What I've heard is that it's comparable to the lower-end ARM chips, which isn't a bad thing, and James will argue it is, but as far as performance goes, I've heard it's comparable to ARM. And it makes some sense. I mean, we know that Intel was subsidizing Haswell, and we know that wouldn't last forever. So it does make sense that Intel's now stepping down to compete at the same price point with lower specs. But the upside is fanless and battery life. We're pushing, 12 hours with some of these, or is it 10? I think it's the new Tegra that's pushing 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. ARM is still the king of battery life when it comes to optimization. So I think at a lower level, though, Intel's really going to have to compete with ARM. Haswell blew them out of the water, but Haswell was subsidized. So now Intel has to compete on a level playing field. And I don't know that they're ready, to be honest. They didn't come up with anything that blows ARM out of the water, which is kind of what we expected from Intel. They're the top dog. If they're going to compete, they're going to revolutionize. And they didn't. And it kind of number one, it gives legitimacy to ARM. It's saying that ARM wasn't just, purposely choosing margins over performance or anything. That is the limitation of the technology at that, with those restrictions. So it to some extent, it kind of makes me a little excited. We're going to have some actual competition. Where's AMD?
Yeah, I don't know where is AMD. I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
I was actually wondering that too. The other day I saw something on, I don't know, Google Plus or something about AMD did something, and I was like, oh yeah, they make chips too. I wonder.
Well, you know what they did? You know what their newest thing is? They're making the stream. They're the chip inside the Microsoft stream.
Oh, really? That might be what I saw. Maybe that's what because I saw something about AMD, and I thought, I wonder if we're ever going to see a AMD in a Chromebook. But sounds like they're going in the Bing books.
Exactly, they're going on the bingo. So right now I've got it loaded with a number of things, and it's not necessarily slowing down. I wouldn't say I've got now 7 tabs open, including G+, which we all know is kind of a pig.
And open 7 at a time, John.
What's that?
7 tabs is nothing.
I know. But I've got some heavy hitters like Ford.com, Honda.com with a lot of flash, a lot of stuff going on, and it's still rocking fine. Now my only caveat was, of course, the 3D stuff, which I know that I harp on that, and I know that, but that's only because I care. My thought has always been that 3D, not televisions, but 3D on your computer is actually like going to be one of the big things, and not just on your computer, but inside the web technologies. And so to be able to use 3D on the web, right? So with something like or the fact that the Oculus Rift is going to be using 3D WebGL, right? So now you've got And remember, and I talked to, I pinged the guy from Age of Ascent. I mean, like, literally that sucks you in. You know, I mean, if you guys know about Second Life back in the day, you know, it was something that you could get into. To me, I think 3D is very important. So if it doesn't work very well on a chip, I think that you're definitely missing out on the future a little bit. Look, am I right or wrong? I don't know. That's my vision of the future. And to say that right now the Bay Trail and Intel combo doesn't work as well as I know that it could, I think to me is a little bit frustrating and a little bit limiting. Now, on simple things, it works fine. On some other things, it for some reason doesn't work, but we also know that Google's always making things better. So whether that be something needs to be tweaked, or it's funny, I was going to bring up the Hello Run game, which I think is another really good example of 3D, and see how well that would work, because I've tried it before, but I also recently got an update, so this machine could run better with 3D. All that being said, so far so good with this model and things like 3D. Here's Hello Run working on the device. It's working well. I can pan around. I don't seem to be having any difficulty. So you can see it's working, and it's working well. And this is with the Honda.com, Ford.com, G+, all the ones on there. And that could be just from the update that I got today, that it's allowing it to get better and better and better. So I don't know if Bay Trail is necessarily going to be, because what James, you said this earlier, it's not supposed to run Minecraft. It's not supposed to run like really bleeding edge hardcore games. It's meant to run basic stuff, and I think that I've put it through its paces enough to know that the Haswell might beat it on some things, like hands down, like the 3D stuff. Like I know I can throw more 3D at it, and it's bam, good. But the Haswell is definitely has its place as the new inexpensive Intel chip, and the new fanless. I think, like Craig, you said that the top word that comes to your head is fanless. So if you're interested in a really rugged, and I mean rugged, like I press on the top and it's not moving, I know that I'm not going to damage the screen inside, unlike the Acer model, where you you take this bad boy and you press hard enough, you're going to make quite a dent. You're going to press your screen into your keyboard on the Acer C720 model. This is so much more than that. It's so much more heavy. Now, so before I continue, I think I just want to touch on a couple more things, and then we'll get out of here. Any questions about the unit, guys, that you might have had that you were like, I want to know if it. Now, I'm not gonna do a drop test. That's not gonna happen. But any other questions that you might have?
Will it blend?
Will it blend? You know what? I would have to. I don't know if have they ever blended something this big before? Did they have to chop it up first?
It depends on the type of blender, John. Do you not own an industrial-sized blender?
No, I do not.
Well,
who cares about blending anymore? It's all about bending.
Ah, yeah, that's true. Does it bend?
Near the volume buttons. See what happens.
Does it bend? I haven't heard of that. I'll have to follow up with you guys on that, because I heard about that, and here's what I thought. Just because, I'm going to ask this question anyway, and even though it's not Chrome related, but the whole bending thing with the iPhone 6, I'm literally surprised at how many people with the iPhone 6, and when I say people, I mean women, put the iPhone, not the 6, but the iPhone in their back pocket and then sit down on it. What? So now I can see why, if there's even the slightest amount of bend available, it's going to bend with women. Because they like to put it right in their back pocket, dude. Literally in their back pocket, and will sit on a hard bench seat.
Ladies' pockets aren't meant for putting things in.
Well,
They're just too small and tight. Of course, they're gonna break their phone. They put it in their back pocket.
we should add that this is actually the 6 Plus that it's bending, which is the larger of the two. So we'll have to see when the new Nexus phone comes out, and it's 6 inches and it's massive, if it bends too. Because there is a point when it gets big enough that you can no longer put enough reinforcement in it. I mean, you build a long enough bridge, it's going to sway.
Adamantium.
I think phones are thin enough And I think the goal to get them so super thin is just silly. Like, there's already phones as big as the iPhone 6 Plus, and nobody's complaining about them bending because they're not paper thin. And I don't think, like, this phone, it's thin. It's not iPhone thin, but I've never looked at it and thought, boy, this is so thick and obnoxious. I can't believe how thick this phone is. Look at it. Why couldn't it be as thin as an iPhone? Like, I think Apple should just consider making the phone durable, not paper thin.
Okay.
And people need to stop putting it in their back pockets because that's silly. I put my phone in my back pocket, but I wear man pants because I'm a man, and the pockets are actually big enough to put things in. And so when I do sit down on my phone is actually completely horizontal, and it's not really putting any bendy pressure on it. But you got these people wearing these skinny jeans, and they put the phone in, and it's sitting crooked, and then they sit down on it. You got that coming, people. You got that coming.
Okay, Grandpa. Calm yourself.
In my day, our pants were baggy.
Stop worrying about other people's pants. Mind your own business. Just go out, have a nice meal, get back home before 4.
I can't do that.
Hit a Cracker Barrel. Take your your constitutional walk.
I do like Cracker Barrel.
Hey, Cracker Barrel's the bomb. Okay, so back to this guy. By the way, not gonna bend. Like, literally.
Don't bend that one. Go to the store and bend one there before you buy it.
Right. So let me talk about the some of the interesting stuff on the side. So when you're in the tablet mode, you do have a volume rocker, and you also have a power button. So instead of having the power button on the keyboard, like we're used to, instead what they've done is they've actually turned it into the lock button. So instead of it being a power button, it's actually a little lock button right above the backspace, which is kind of, again, it's interesting that they took the time to engineer it a little bit extra to get the whole tablet feel to it. It does have a full-size HDMI as well as USB. I believe they're USB 3 on both sides, and then of course the SD card slot, which does not allow for full insertion. It does do the half seats, so that way you can't leave one in there, which is kind of annoying. But we've seen that on other models. But of course, headphone jack. Interesting piece about this one. All great, all wonderful. Windows model does come with an Ethernet port. This one just has it capped off, so that it is actually not built into the motherboard. There's just a cap over it, and you cannot use Ethernet. But yet there's a port large enough, and it could have been there. So
yeah, I don't know why they didn't just put it in there.
I don't know either.
Is it all the extra hardware required to build a Chromebook in there? There's not enough room for the Ethernet card?
No, I think it's actually the opposite. They had to include an Ethernet for Windows because if you reinstall Windows, you have to be able to plug it in to download your wireless drivers.
Oh, snap!
Stupid Windows.
That's like snapping a Z formation right there. That was a good one. So the final thing is this one. And do you guys remember my N20 conversation?
I remember very few of our conversations.
Okay. Let's be honest, James. Well, Craig, if you remember correctly, the fact that this is a USB port and this is the power port, USB port, power port, almost identical in size, and it's just this weird power coupling. And you know what? After the N20 episode, I had a conversation with a gentleman on G Plus about the fact that Lenovo has put this in all their ThinkPad lines, and it's this it looks just like a USB cord that goes in for power. I don't know why it bothers me, but it does. It flies in the face of normalcy. I'm so used to my barrels, you know what I mean? My barrel power cords. The ones from Lenovo are actually enormous. Like they're literally like a quarter of an inch on the inner diameter of their barrels that they would have for the power cords. And they were huge, and they had the big yellow port that you'd plug it into. It was fantastic. But to have these square power ports that are rectangular power ports that are shaped like USB ports it's just really annoying when you go to plug it in. I don't know. especially if you don't own one. So then, like, when you're the person trying to plug someone in this machine in, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, when you've had it for a while, you're like, you know exactly where the power port is, obviously, and you know the whole USB thing. But I just think it was a bad choice. Bad choice. Any other questions about the 11E Yoga? I was so psyched about it, and then I got it, and it's really nice, but it's to be honest, it's just too heavy, and I don't care for the tablet experience with it. That's kind of my takeaways. No, nothing. Just silence is golden, gentlemen. Silence is
None
golden.
questions, John.
What's that?
None questions.
None questions. So I guess that's going to be it for the show tonight, guys. I appreciate you coming on again and us taking care of business. TCB, BRT, all that good stuff. Mr. Tumbleson, where can people find you throughout the week? Except for, I know that they can find you in the product forums at Google, because that's where, if you do need help with anything Google related, you will find their product forum for that product, and especially you'll find Craig and James in the Chromebooks one. But where else can they find you besides that?
Listeners can find me on Google+. I use my real name. Just search for Craig Tumbleson.
All right. And Mr. Webus?
You can also find me on Google+. I also use Craig's real name, Craig Tumbleson. Just kidding. My name, James Welbus. Not Weebles, not Welbs, not Welbers, but Welbus.
And of course, I'm John. I'm me. My name is John Oliphant, and you can find me at John at Practical Chrome, or you can find the Practical Chrome G+ site, Practical Chrome on YouTube, practicalchrome.com. I also go by Rooster Cogburn by some of my friends and family, and so you can also find me with that as well. I do go by Craig, but that's only when I'm flaming somewhere, and I just really want to get people riled up. I go by Craig Tumbleson. So if you see a flame post somewhere out there and his name is on it with his picture, that's me. So just keep that in mind in case you ever see. You'll be like, "That's not Craig." That's right, that's me. So anyway, everyone, thanks for listening to Practical Chrome. Thanks for watching, and have a good evening, everyone. That's the end of the show.
Ciao.
Say bye, guys.
Bye,
Say bye.
guys.
Craig is waving as usual. Come on, man. Unmute.